Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of STEAMrolled. This time we're going to be learning a few basics about weather, and later on we're going to perform a fun and quick experiment that you can do at home. So let's get started. Weather is a very important part of our lives on Earth. For example, it affects how we dress and what activities we might do during the day. It also changes all the time, but weather experts, called meteorologists, try to predict it. There are 4 factors that are present in different types of weather: temperature, wind, precipitation, and the sky, meaning the sun and clouds. Pretend it's a hot summer day at the beach. You've been having fun building sandcastles, but in the afternoon, the wind starts to howl and you see dark clouds over the ocean and getting closer. You can probably predict what the weather will be: a storm. So you'll also gather your belongings and go inside. Rain is just one example of weather. Other weather you might see is snow, wind, and sunny days. In certain parts of the world, there's even extreme weather like tornadoes and hurricanes. Season changes might also affect the type of weather we experience. Winter is when it will snow, but you're more likely to have a tornado in spring or summer when weather patterns are changing from cold to hot. Earlier, we briefly mentioned that meteorologists study weather and try to predict it. They collect a lot of data in order to do this. They might use technology like satellites to see images of Earth from space, or weather balloons that go high in the sky to collect data on temperature, pressure, humidity, and wind speed and direction. Now let's take a look at the water cycle, which is a very important process in the environment and the weather we experience. We'll start over the ocean with evaporation. This is the process of water changing into a gas that rises into the atmosphere. The water then changes back into a liquid high in the sky, forming clouds. Precipitation comes next, meaning rain or snow. The water that falls back to Earth flows down rivers and streams and makes its way back to large water sources. Some precipitation even goes into the groundwater beneath the surface of the Earth. Then the cycle restarts with evaporation. Now focus more on the formation of clouds. We start at the evaporation stage when water vapor, which is a gas, goes through the process of condensation. This is when water changes into a liquid again. High in the atmosphere, it forms droplets or freezes into ice crystals, forming clouds. And once those ice crystals get too heavy, the clouds can no longer hold them and they fall as rain or snow. There are 4 basic types of clouds, but there are many more that are unique. The first type are called cirrus clouds. They are wispy and curled, and they're found very high in the atmosphere. Cumulus clouds are big and fluffy, looking like cotton balls. They form when warm air rises in the atmosphere. Stratus clouds are flat and layered. They are very low and block the sun. Fog after a rainstorm is actually stratus clouds touching the ground. And our last basic cloud type is called a nimbus cloud. These are rain clouds. They usually are gray or black and have ragged edges where rain or snow falls. You can actually try predicting the weather based on changes in clouds, so give it a shot and see if you're right. We've definitely learned a lot about weather, so let's jump into our experiment. We will be making our own cloud. This experiment does require adult supervision, so make sure you have help before getting started. Here's what you need: a glass jar with a lid, 1 cup of hot boiling water, optional blue food coloring, hairspray, and 3 to 5 cubes of ice. This experiment is performed quickly, so have all of your supplies ready to go. First, pour 1 cup of hot boiling water into the glass jar. Quickly spray the hairspray into the jar, and immediately put the lid onto the jar. Here's a quick helpful tip. Because this step must be performed quickly, have the lid handy. It also helps to have multiple people doing the experiment, 1 to spray the hairspray and 1 to put on the lid. Immediately after putting the lid on, place your ice on top of the lid and watch the top of the jar carefully. You'll see your cloud begin to form. As we've already learned, clouds form when water from Earth's surface is heated and evaporated, rises into the atmosphere, and then cools and condenses. In our experiment, the warm water in the jar caused the air inside the jar to heat up. When this happened, some of the water evaporated into the air. This evaporation formed water vapor in the jar. This warm, moist air rose from the surface of the water to the top of the jar. And once it reached the top, the air began to cool down. This is because of the ice that was on the lid of the jar. The water vapor in the cooling air then condensed onto the particles of hairspray, forming a cloud in the jar. If you observe the cloud carefully, you'll notice that it swirls around the jar. This swirling is caused by a convection current of warm air rising and cold air sinking. After observing the cloud in the jar, remove the lid and watch the cloud move out of the jar. Alright everyone, thanks for watching this edition of STEAMrolled. Join us next month on November 10th for a lesson in thermodynamics.